Hello gorgeous people, how are you all doing today? I certainly hope you're doing better than me. Oh dear, I'm really not very well at all. Excuse how I look. I know I look a mess. Never mind, it doesn't matter. Things have not gone to plan, and I was hoping that by now you would have seen a couple of videos. That hasn't happened, so I thought today we'll do a bit of a catch up to see where things are at and why things have been a bit slow. So I'm going to do that sitting down though. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you the state of the flat at the moment. Oh my goodness, mid kitchen reno. So I'm going to turn you all around. Sorry, excuse me, let me get you turned around while I'm clearing my throat. If I have little bits of coughing moments, please just forgive it. I'm still full of this cold. Anyway, so yeah, there's a little bit of chaos going on. The kitchen is all over the place. So here's my, this is spices and bits and pieces. My headscarf that I put on when because at the moment I'm at the very dusty, mucky stage. That's fine. Oh, and underneath the chair, that's all the shelf brackets. Literally at the moment, things, excuse me, things are all over the place wherever they can fit. That's the shelf brackets, and they've all had a really good scrub, so they're sparkling and looking brand new again. Can you see under the bed? It sticks out that far. The reason the bubble wrap, that's normally under the bed, the reason it's out there and over the end of this is to give me a visual warning to stop me tripping. That's one of the kickboards from the kitchen. I don't know if you call it that in other parts of the world, kickboard, but it's the board that you put, like where my duvet is there, imagine that's the bottom of the cupboard. The kickboard is just that little bit that fills in between the bottom of the cupboard and the floor, just to stop, dust and stuff. The other kickboard is behind me under the radiator. That is an order for the shop that I need to get out soon. And I just, at the corner of my eye, I just saw that's a COVID test. I need to dispose of that properly. Just to say, no, I don't have COVID. That's the second test I've done. But the fact that I did that test this morning will tell you something about how utterly rubbish I feel. And I just wanted to double check that it's not COVID because, for instance, I need to go to the post office and etc, etc. Yeah, the window's been pretty jammed up. Had to move my squash along. So it's a squash on the window now. My jars of bits of food. Oh, and this is a little tip as well. This is the screws from the brackets. That's the big screws. That's the ones that go into the masonry. That's the little screws. They're the ones that go up from the brackets into the shelves. These two boxes, my little storage boxes, they're normally tucked away in the back of the wardrobe. It's just decorating bits. Good, have those out. This I don't like at the moment. This extension cable that goes across the room to wire me into my computer or sewing machine. I don't like having cables across the floor, but I don't have a socket over here. More kitchen stuff. So this is normally my sewing table or my parcel packing up for, the post. I don't know. My brain's a bit wonky at the moment. So yeah, this is my kind of in use everyday stuff. So it's kind of to hand and off the floor. Signs of the cold. Loo roll because my handkerchiefs don't keep up. We'll come to the sofa in a minute because there's stuff I want to talk about. Yeah, I've got one of my sticks there because although today I'm not using a stick, for the last few days, I'll explain that when we sit down. Pots and pans down the back here. Got more kitchen stuff. My blender, my food processor. It's everywhere. A freezer in the middle of the room. This freezer is now 2/3 full. I will eventually get it emptied and then I will give this one away as well. made a little drawer unit that's normally in the kitchen as well. Laundry waiting to happen. Oh, this is gorgeous. Let me show you this. It's a little vintage apron, a little half penny, little handmade one. It's so cute. I love this fabric. It's very 50s, isn't it? And what I really love on the bottom, the rick-rack. Chunky rick-rack. You don't see rick-rack, do you, as an embellishment these days? I won't be sitting there when we do our thoughts on. I've got all my paint and bits under the chair, ready and waiting. That's my under the cupboard curtain. And this is where the kitchen is at the moment. It's very empty. Oh, now, first things first, it's going to get echoey. Can you hear? Echo, echo, echo as we go in here. That tray has got my washing up from the last couple of days on it. I've been feeling so grim. I haven't washed up in a couple of days. I'll do that at some point today. But as with any DIY, any decorating, any reno kind of job, you start. If I speak in the living room, it sounds like this, and then if I speak in the kitchen, it sounds like this. Yeah, you start with the muckiest stuff. You know, like when you do your housework, we always start at the top, don't we? We dust from the top, we dust down, 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 and then eventually we sweep or we hoover. Well, it's going to be the same in the kitchen. When I actually come to sort of painting and stuff, I'll be starting at the top. But for now, because I'm doing the mucky stuff, I'm starting at the bottom. Oh, my finger's cramping up with stripping this floor. Now, this floor originally, it is a beech wood floor. To begin with, it was a reclaimed floor. And yeah, it wasn't in great shapes, which is why I painted it. But actually, now that it's kind of part stripped, part not, this has taken hours to do. It's been really, really tough work. I've done it with, let me show you, this is one of these orbital sanders. And I've done it sitting on the chair, sort of leaning over. Because I'm leaning over, I can put my weight onto the sander a bit to really have a good go at it. But I'm loving how this looks so far. Now, originally the plan was to get it completely clean, but I actually want to leave some of this paint on. I just love it. I absolutely love this kind of, it now looks like a reclaimed floor. I will have to, you see under the cupboards where there's a lot of paint left, and it's too harsh a line. That's because the orbital sander doesn't fit under the cupboard doors. So I am going to go back along and do all this by hand with a block, you know, with a sort of a sanding block with sanding paper wrapped around it, and do it by hand. And then obviously all of that gets covered up by the kickboards anyway. But I absolutely love the look of this. Now, some of you may think I'm mad, some of you may hate it, absolutely hate it. That's fine. I think a distressed, reclaimed, whatever, floor like this, I am going to do one more pass. I'm going to get a little bit more off. But I think this will work so long as it's all about the juxtaposition. So long as everything else in the kitchen is kind of perfect and spick spock. So all the wall, obviously painting, it'll be bright white and clean. Redo the grout. Obviously all the cupboard doors are going to be scrubbed clean. Everything's going to get a really good scrubbing. So it's all, the idea will be that everything is going to look really clean and new and kind of perfect, so that this gorgeous, shabby, imperfect floor works. If everything else was shabby, it wouldn't work. It would just all look too shabby. Now, it may be that once the entire, I'll do this floor again, and I'll do all the decorating. It may be that once I've decorated and got everything back, I think, I'm not sure this floor works. In which case, if I can't get all the paint off, I will repaint it. But I'll leave the repainting for a few months until I'm ready to actually sell. I don't want to paint it now and scuff it all up again before I sell. And if I do repaint it, I'm not going to use the same product because I don't think it's hard enough wearing. That's just reminded me of a little job I want to do. Let's do that right now, and then let's have a sit on the sofa and a catch up with all the other stuff that's been going on. Yeah, let's go and have a sit down. As you can see, my spider plant has had a baby. This spider plant is the 3rd generation. Oh my goodness, everything's so dusty. I've got to say just quickly that the state of the flat, despite having a cover on the kitchen door when I was sanding, it is really, really dusty. It's chaotic, it's a mess, and I know that some folk would be driven absolutely nuts by this. I keep kicking me brackets. I'm okay with it, and you know, it's not ideal. I don't love it, of course not, but the fact is, it's only going to be hopefully a couple more weeks. It's a means to an end. You know, this is not life for every day for the rest of my life. It's just a temporary thing. It's okay. Yeah, poor spider plant. But this spider plant is the 3rd generation. Look, it's terrible. Of a spider plant that was given to me just before my 16th birthday. Let's get cutting. When I was doing my O-levels. It was the days of O-levels that my best friend Jackie gave to me. She gave me a spider plant as a good luck present. And here we are, crikey, nearly 40 years later. The original plant, you know, it died, but I've kept this going. So they produce these sort of long spikes, and at the end of it a baby. And all I will do is cut off this, I suppose it's like the umbilical cord, isn't it? From the mama plant. Just trying to find it for you. Just cut the umbilical cord off. And now all I will do is, and I've got it to hand just over here, just a little jam jar with water, pop that in. I don't know if you can see at the bottom, it almost makes air roots, but just around here is where it's trying to root. So I'll pop that in the water, and you know, in a couple of weeks, few weeks, that will have rooted. Brilliant, a whole nother plant. I'm doing this for a specific reason, which I'll tell you about when we have a little sit down. Come on, let's do our sit down chatty time. I just quickly made myself a hot honey and lemon. Yeah, so I'm about a week behind my planned schedule. Really frustrating, but you know, there are times in life it's nothing you can do about it. So for instance, this cold, and I always say, oh, I don't want to bang on about a cold because it's just a cold. However, it's been so vile, in particular in the last sort of 3 or 4 days, absolutely wiped out, every single joint and muscle aching like mad. I've had a fever for the last 3 or 4 days. I've got a clean hanky here. This is for brow mopping because there are times I'm just running with sweat, which nobody needs to see, so I can dab. This one's for the nose, that one's for dabbing. Because it is so vile, that's why right at the beginning I did a COVID test because I don't want to be out and about if it's COVID. I did another COVID test this morning because I thought this has got to be more than just a cold, surely. But anyway, COVID negative. It's possible, call that sharp, it's possible it's flu because of the fever. But anyway, this isn't a pity party, it's an explanation of why things are kind of really behind. But also, a couple of days ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was about 3, 4 in the morning. It's time for a wee. Went to get up. Oh my goodness, my left leg, my knee was, seriously, it was massive. It was so swollen, so painful, and I couldn't weight bear. So I keep one stick by the side of the bed anyway, because this has happened before. Anyway, so I hobbled myself to the loo, did what I needed to do, came back to bed, got up that morning, and I just couldn't weight bear. And I was using 2 sticks to get around the flat, so there was no way I could do any filming. I was intending to film that day. I couldn't do any more work in the kitchen. It was one of those days to just say, you know what, this is just how it is. You have to accept that today is going to be a write-off. And that's a really, really hard thing to do for an A-type personality. It's really hard to do nothing. I didn't do nothing in the end. I did some admin-y type stuff. But yeah, I mentioned it on Facebook, and I know a few people said, that's because you overdid it. Trust me, I didn't overdo it. I went really slowly. I did it from the chair. The next day, oh my goodness. So I was doing about 15 minutes at a time and then stopping for 15 minutes because with that rotary sander, the vibrations, oh my goodness, upper body, it just kills you. The next morning I could feel my biceps, my triceps, my deltoids. I could feel every muscle and I thought, yay, workout. But yeah, the way my knee blew up, it's happened before. It's happened a couple of times already this year, and it's nothing to do with anything I've done the day before, seemingly, because the last time it happened, the previous day, I'd been doing nothing. I'd been sitting all day sewing. Next day, can't wait there. Anyway, like I say, it's not a pity party. It's more of an explanation of why I haven't progressed as much as I wanted to, but also in terms of I know folk are really keen to see it as a sort of before and after, and we get spoilt with telly, don't we? Because on telly, everything is, when we see these sort of makeover shows within the space of an hour or sometimes even in half-hour shows, what we see is about 3 or 4 weeks work, sometimes even more, sometimes 3 or 4 months, crammed into an hour. So we're used to having that almost, let me get comfy, almost immediate gratification. But we all know that in real life, when it comes to renos or decorating, whatever it is you're doing in your home, there's no such thing as immediate gratification until the last moment. Something Richard touched on in their most recent Sunday chat about staging the home. So rearranging furniture, thinning out the furniture in bits and pieces, all that stuff for presentation, both for the photographs for the estate agent, but also for showing the house for potential buyers. That's gorgeous, because that kind of stuff, you could do it all in a day. That is pretty much instant. Now, talking of staging, so where have I let this over there? The little spider plant cutting I've just taken. I don't always take the cuttings off, I just leave them for a while. However, when it's probably about 10 days or so, a week or so ago, when I went to B&Q to do all my shopping for paint and what have you, and that's nice, it's comforting. I made it just before the water boiled, so it's warm but not hot. That's nice in there. Yeah, when I went to B&Q, got all my paints and bits and pieces. Whilst I was there, I was also looking for a couple of other bits with staging in mind. Sorry. So if you remember, I was talking about those open shelves where I've got all my myriads of crockery, spices. It's a clutter. That's fine for me, for my life. It's all the stuff that's to hand. Works perfectly well. But for staging, it's too cluttered. And I was talking about how I'm going to pare it down. And what I would like to do is have a plant on the end of either the top or the middle shelf that just trails down over the edge, just softens that line of the edge of the shelf. So when I was at B&Q, I went to look at their houseplants. Oh my goodness, I haven't bought a houseplant in years. So as I was just saying with the spider plant, that's the granddaughter of my lucky O-level spider plant. I've got my elephant's ears in the corner, which someone gave to me, which I've tried to kill so many times. That's all the houseplants I've got at the moment. But I haven't bought, anyway, the point is I haven't bought houseplants for years. And I think houseplants quite often, well, there are some of them which are so easy to propagate, such as the spider plant, that we get gifted them, don't we? And I think many of us, the houseplants we do have, they're gifts, like housewarming gifts, or if you go to dinner at someone's home and you know they love houseplants, it's nice to take a houseplant rather than a bunch of flowers, or chocolates for them as a host, because it lasts forever. Anyway, I was really shocked at the prices. So for example, a 10 centimetre pot, so pot that deep, so a plant maybe like this sort of size, they were $7.99. There was a slightly, maybe a 25 centimetre pot, so a plant maybe 30 centimetres tall, 15, 20 centimetres wide, kind of quite lush, £18. I was really shocked. I didn't even look at the cost of, because I had thought about buying some for staging, not just the kitchen, I want the trailing one, but on my half landing I was looking at maybe buying some kind of the palmy frondy ones just for staging. That's a rethink now. Anyway, so one, I was put off by price, and two, there was nothing there that was of a trailing variety. So I've done my spider plant cutting now, and I think by the time it's rooted, it won't be trailing. There's a possibility that the one I've got that's over there, part of it is trailing, that I can maybe divide it. I might be able to slice down through the whole plant. Anyway, the point is, that little baby that I've just cut off now, that should be rooted. I'll pot it up, that can go in there when I come to staging. Also on that subject, I've got something here to show you. I've already kind of thought about this in terms of that. What I will do when the kitchen's finished, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, please let this cold go, please let my knees not blow up again. What I think I will do is, when I put the kitchen back, I will do it staged, as in I'll show it to you how I intend to show it in a few months' time when I put the property on the market, so we can get an idea of how I'm going to stage it in a few weeks' time. Then I'll take all that off and I'll put all my normal stuff back, because I've got to live here in the meantime. But yeah, just to give you an idea of how I'm going to stage it. So I talked about various things. I've got some basketware that I think will go nicely on the shelf. The idea with the whole kitchen will be that it's all white, and that most of the colour is coming from the natural stuff like wood, from the butcher's block. I've got some basketware. I've set them aside already. I've got a couple of boxes, wooden boxes, that might go. I've got one that's in a sort of darker mahogany, one that's in a more pine colour, very simple. I'll just see which colour works best. But then the live plant, the green from the live plant, and then some bits and bobs of crockery with, like I said, those blues and greens. But the other thing I talked about was putting on there all my jars of beans and rice and pasta, lentils, all that kind of stuff. And I was talking about trying to find jars that match. The thing is, with our eyes, the way our brains work, if all the contents are different, that's quite chaotic. But if the jars are the same, that helps. That's quite calming for our brain to read. And that's the whole thing with staging for selling. We want there to be interest in the home. We want there to be that visual interest that makes people kind of stop and look. But we don't want chaos, which hurts the brain. The brain kind of starts to fight. Where do my eyes need to land? I can't cope. I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at. Too many colours, too many shapes, too many textures. So, obviously the contents of the jars, there are different shapes and different textures. But if the jars are all the same, that's the kind of thing which calms the brain down and makes it nice to look at. And then I suddenly remembered, oh my goodness. When Auntie Teapot died, I had to sort out her home. And there was, there's far more there than I could ever bring to my home. And there's stuff I simply don't want. There's so many of her books, they're just not of interest to me. So I went through everything very carefully, picked out bits and pieces for different family members, things that were more personal than, she had a load of books she'd never even read. She was a member of a book club, one of those postal book clubs. She just used to get books arriving every week. Never read them, still in their plastic packets. Anyway, so finding a few of those personal pieces to disseminate amongst family members. Excuse me. And I kept 3 things for myself. I also had to be a bit kind of canny about it all, because I had to get all that stuff back to London to then send via the post to various family members. There's only so much I can bring, I'm on foot, But the 3 things I picked for me, it's not to hand, it's back down there, but I've got a lovely little basket with a handle that she made. I really want to learn basketry. I love that little basket. It sits next to my thoughts on chair, and it's where I sometimes put bits and pieces that I want to talk about when I'm having a chatty video. So I put my notes or bits and bobs in there to talk about. The other 2 kind of categories, I kept all of her, not all actually, the small ones, all the terracotta pots from the garden. Now, some of them I bought for her, some of them she's had for years and years and years, but I rescued them all and brought them back to London in a lot of trips because they weigh a ton. I would, every time, I was going backwards and forwards a lot at the time anyway, but every time I came back I'd try and bring 10, 15 pots back with me. And walking back from the station, the allotment is on the way, so I'd do a little detour with my granny trolley. So I've got terracotta pots, which they're beautiful and they'll come with me to my next home. But the other thing, and I think I've got about 20 or so, and I talked about it at the time and I said, I'm not going to touch oh, that's a clue. I'm not going to touch these, they're all dusty, mucky. I'm going to leave them for now, and I'm going to treat them as a housewarming present when I move to my next property. But, and I know she'd like this idea, she kind of probably wouldn't get it about the whole staging thing, but her attitude will be, if you can use them now in a practical way, get on with it. All these really beautiful, old, and there's the lid, Kilner jars, glass lid, absolute, what does it say? The Kilner jar improved. I don't think you can make out the writing. Improved. So these, she probably would have bought these in the 50s. So they're 70 something years old, but they're gorgeous. So I gave this one a wash and a scrub up, and I thought it's perfect for the staging. So on that bottom shelf I can have a row of Kilner jars, and this is what I mean about that kind of sort of paring it down and simplifying it. The simplifying is putting them all in the same jars. So they'll have different levels of stuff in. The contents will be different colours, shapes, textures, as I said before, but the uniformity of all the jars being identical should make it pleasing to the eye. Yay! So, and I love this, but the whole staging thing, you know, in a different lifetime, because I think it's only a recent thing, isn't it, professional stagers, but in a different lifetime, I would love to be a home stager. The only thing with that is, I wouldn't be able to do it now because you need to be a driver, because you're driving around trucks full of stuff for the staging all the time. But yeah, it's an extension of me as the homemaker. I love being a homemaker. I love placing things just so that they are, you know, pleasing to my eye, and whether it's colours or the shapes or where the furniture is. I love all that. I can't wait. I can't wait for the kitchen to be finished. And also, I've got other stuff to talk about. I don't know how much we'll get through today because I feel so grim. But I did say about when I did all the buying of paint and all that kind of stuff that I've been saving, and I've made a budget, a sort of a reno/staging budget, because honestly these things can make a difference. I know there's a lot of people who have said, oh, just sell it as it is, you don't need to bother. I can tell you from as a purchaser myself, because I'm going to be a purchaser, and I have had moments where I've looked online at things. I've seen photographs of homes where they haven't even made the bed. The estate agents come in to take photos. They haven't even made the bed, for goodness sakes. And what happens is, I literally just skim past that. Nope, not interested. It looks vile. And I think if a homeowner can't even be bothered to make their bed before the photographer comes in, what else have they not bothered with? You know, have they not bothered to, you know, sort out electrics and plumbing and da-di-da-di-da? What's their home maintenance been like if they can't be bothered to make the bed? And likewise with the floor in the kitchen, it was really battered from my chair, from where my chair goes backwards and forwards on the floor. It looked awful. And I don't want someone to come in, see that, because it was glaring. It's like coming into the living room that's maybe got a carpet and there's a massive stain on the carpet. And you think, God, is that animal urine? Is that blood? What is it? Ugh! You know, if someone sees that really rubbish looking floor, they might think to themselves, what else has she not bothered to upkeep? Now, obviously, I'm Little Miss Maintenance. I am Miss Home Maintenance. You know, I've talked about it before. The boiler gets maintained every single year. The roof is new. The gutters get cleared regularly. I look after this property. I look after the stuff you can't see. But if the stuff that you can see looks unmaintained, their brain starts triggering. So that's why I'm bothering to do all this. I want someone to be able to move in, unpack their stuff, go to sleep that first night and be really happy in their new home. So, where do we get to? Yeah, I've had, oh, and just to say as well, hang on a tick. That's better. I needed to blow my nose. It was so annoying. Anyway, look, I just clocked the clock. I was intending for this one to be a real quickie. I don't know how to do a quickie, obviously. Anyway, there's other stuff I was going to talk about. That can wait for another video. Let's just, yeah, that's enough for today. A bit of a catch-up. A bit of see where I'm at and an explanation of why things are so behind. But you know what? It'll happen. It will happen. Hopefully. I think realistically, I hope it can be all done within the next 2 weeks. It's one of those things, I think I mentioned this in the previous one, I'm not sure, but if I didn't have anything else to do in life, maybe I could get it done in 7 or 8 days, but there are other things to do. Plus, I'm not well. Oh, it's so annoying. I'm sure there's loads of you out there who are like me, a bit of an A-type, and getting poorly is really, really annoying, isn't it? It's so hard to sit still. That's the sit still police. They've come to tie me down. Stop it, Vivi. Anyway, yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment. The next job in the kitchen, I'm going to continue on the floor in my own sweet time. Then, because it's the messy work, I'm kind of moving up. What I'll be doing the butcher's block, which I'll show you because I think that might be useful for some people, especially where I've got those ring stains from my cast iron lid. At the same time, I'm going to be filling any of the small little, where any of the plaster is looking rubbish, do all my filling and sanding so that afterwards that's the really dusty stuff done. And just to say very, very quickly before I go, in terms of the floor, what I've done is I've swept, I'm sweeping as I go. Then the thing with all that dust, that really, that's a lot of sirens. I hope nobody's hurt. I have a sweep up, and then what will happen is the following morning I'll come back in and there'll be loads more dust, because obviously there's so much of it in the air. So at the moment I'm sweeping it and dustpan and brushing it. But once I've finished doing all the sanding, so that's the counter, the butcher's block, plus the bit of plaster on the ceiling, once all the sanding is finished and I have my final sweep up, then I will do all my wet mopping and wet dusting. Then leave it for another day, or at least sort of overnight, because the following morning that gives all the bits of dust in the air a chance to settle, and then another wet dust and a wet mop. There might have to be 3 wet mops. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's it today. Shut up, Vivi. Lie down. That's what I want. I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. Please, any of you that have been poorly, because I know in response to things on Facebook, I know a few of you have been a bit under the weather too. Really hope you're on the mend now, and you're, people say, oh, rest, take a day off. There's no time to rest. But yeah, let's all rest as and when we can and get ourselves better, because, we're heading into spring. I mean, we're in spring, and after the kitchen's done, I need to plant a garden, for goodness sakes. All right, lovelies, until the next one, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, take care of strangers, put love out there, put as much love out there as I'm putting dust out there. Cheerio.